In this video, we're going to take a look at a purple ink by Akkerman, their number 30, a name I'm not going to try and pronounce. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the purple playlist, so if you wanted to see more purple inks, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample, 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation. We're not expecting it and we're not getting it. The smear test says you probably could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Kaweco 475, a vintage pen, was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding. These aren't bleed spots. It's transfer from me being sloppy. We have no ghosting. Not for Tomoe River. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 35 seconds to dry. Wow. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, and a whopping 91 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both are showing no color variation. We're not getting it. In the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that there is the faintest beginning of a line at the bottom. It is pushing its way up very uniformly as it's moving, showing it's grabbing the paper as it goes. It gathers at the top as a very, very dark purple and a almost blackish line at the very top, making me think that there is a little bit of a mix here. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water, and that purple line at the bottom is much more permanent and there. It's not moving up as uniformly because most of it stayed in the line, and as it moves up, you get that very dark purple and that line of that kind of black at the top. I think it might be a little bit resistant. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, some spots of shading. The K in quick is a bit darker. The B in brown is a bit darker. The is certainly darker than the word over, 13 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, the same peppering of shading. The K in quick is a bit darker, the B in brown a bit darker, the X in fox. Jumps looks darker than the word fox in general, and 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows a little bit of color variation, which shows that peppering. The medium shows none, but it did about the same as the extra fine in the writing, and the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. This smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's no way I would use this in a note-taking situation. It would just be bad. The water is reactivating some, and it's moving some of that purple, but leaving the blue very much in place. Interestingly, on this swatch, we do see a little bit of a kind of golden sheen appear right around the middle where the ink is heaviest, but it never shows up in the writing. Pen flush does much more than water does. It really starts breaking it down. You start to see the white of the paper coming through. Now, the great news is it only took water to get it out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it, but it is also discoloring the paper some with a kind of yellow tone. The next writing sample is done on monokaki paper. We have no bleeding, very minor ghosting in a couple spots. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows a little bit of color variation left to right, but we don't get it. And the medium shows none, which we got none. And a smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Akkerman's number 30 has a viscosity of 1.44, making this a wet ink. If you're interested in all of that viscosity stuff, then down in the description below is a link to that video. Let's take a look at the next writing sample done on TWSBI notebook paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is much lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 12 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 19 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, but we get none. The medium showed none, and we got none. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Akkerman's number 30 has an average dry time of a whopping 33 seconds. That's largely to do with how long it took to dry on that Tomoe River. The next writing sample is done on moleskin paper. We do have a bleed spot that comes through in the extra fine writing, and quite a bit of it comes through with the medium. Now, none of this touched the page underneath. That would stop me from using the back of the page. The extra fine, doing perfectly good. No real ghosting with the extra fine. The medium has a bunch of tiny feathering all over it. It has no spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Scrubby shows some color variation, but we're not getting it. And the smear test, you might be able to recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Akkerman's number 30, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a green with this purple, and I chose Graf von Faber Castell's Moss Green. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those color playlists. So what do I think of Akkerman's number 30? Everything about this ink makes me think it is a very dark purple, except the writing, where it looks black. Obviously, a bad handwriting day going on right now, so don't judge me. It's a super dark ink with almost no tone variation or shading. The good news, it will easily work in a professional environment. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It really performed exactly the same all the time in every pen, with one exception. The Vintage Flex pen was able to get much more tone variation in the writing and put down some shading spots that you were to see during the part where you saw me writing out my thoughts. So if you have a Vintage Flex, great. Otherwise, it's a dealer's choice. It's not going to change for you. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Noodler's Rattler Red Eel.